such that a piece of news comes out like what you mentioned earlier that's happened in Bucha. It comes out and there's this enormous explosion. It's almost volcanic of hate and criticism and stories supporting all of this against the Russians that bursts on the scene almost immediately. All of the retired general officers come on and with no exceptions say virtually all the same thing. And when that happens, I step back and I'm extremely suspicious and very skeptical because I've seen this before.
Earlier on, you said that there's no chance that Russia essentially doesn't come out victorious over Ukraine if it's, the two parties that continue to fight and that's it. Given that, and given the fact that what we seem to be witnessing from the Russian military, again, we don't have the Russian playbook before us right now, we're just speculating, but it seems as though the Russian military has just been applying enough pressure to keep massive troops protecting Kiev, Ukrainian troops protecting Kiev, while the Russian military fulfills their goals in the outskirts of Ukraine, doing their denazification, demilitarization, removing NATO weaponry, these sorts of things. I'm curious then, given today's events, an alleged massacre, 410 civilians they're reporting, at least, they're said to be dead in the city of Bucha in Ukraine. Bucha, yeah. So what do you think about this? Do you think it would make sense for the Russian military, who spent a month occupying that city, living, in relative peace with the civilians there, to kill 410 civilians on the last day as they leave the city?
Well, no, I don't. And I think experience in military affairs suggests that if you do that sort of thing, all you do is stiffen resistance against you. Mm-hmm. The bodies don't disappear. The act persists. It has a bad odor. It doesn't go away. And it's hard for me to believe that this was a deliberate act by the Russian military. That said, it's not impossible. We did things in Vietnam that were terrible. We know about some of them. We don't know about all of them. Soldiers on the battlefield, if they're frustrated and angry, if they're drinking a lot of alcohol, using drugs, any number of things, they can suddenly run amok and do terrible things. Mm-hmm. Again, I looked at both sides of this, and I couldn't come away with a certain conclusion one way or the other. There were things that didn't make a lot of sense. A lot of these people had this white armband tied around them. The white armband was a signal to the Russian army that, look, I'm not part of the Ukrainian army. I don't support it. Effectively, I'm not in the war. And all of a sudden, large numbers of those people are dead. We do know that Ukrainian forces have killed people like that elsewhere. They've assassinated mayors, people have disappeared, and so forth. But again, I'm not saying that happened. I don't know. And my experience in the Balkans, when I was involved with the air campaign, and then earlier in Bosnia in '95, the Finns were a very good source of investigative scientists, medical people. They would get in and they could tell you the truth. And what the Finns told you, you could believe. But the two sides involved rarely. And I'm not putting much trust in what either side says right now in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And right now you have masses of troops surrounding this Ukrainian mass that remains in southern Ukraine. How will that turn out? I don't know, but I would suspect that the Russians can probably annihilate it. How they will do it is it's up to them. In 1944, when the Russians cut off and surrounded 50,000 German troops in what we today call White Russia near Minsk, they backed off, they surrounded it, and they brought in air power, 5,000 aircraft. And most of the German troops in the field could not break out because they were surrounded by armor, and they were killed. I guess we could see something like that happen. The Russians can do it, and now they have much more accurate munitions in many cases that they haven't used a lot of, but they could use down in southern Ukraine. I don't know. I think we're going to have to wait for events to dictate the outcome. But I really think this war will end when Putin decides to end it, not at any other point in time. And right now, he sees no reason to end it, given the attitude that he's encountered at the negotiating table. Whenever you have such unanimity in the American and Western media, and you have such brilliant timing, such that a piece of news comes out like what you mentioned earlier in that's happened in Bucha. It comes out and there's this enormous explosion. It's almost volcanic of hate and criticism and stories supporting all of this against the Russians that bursts on the scene almost immediately, all at roughly the same time. And all of the retired general officers come on and with no exceptions say virtually all the same thing. And when that happens, I step back and I'm extremely suspicious and very skeptical because I've seen this before. I saw it in the run up to the Iraq War back in 2002 and 2003. I saw it in the Balkans with regard to what happened in Bosnia and then subsequently in Kosovo. So it looks like we have a similar strategy now. And the second part of this information campaign, which is very sophisticated, that's being run, I think, largely by us in the West, primarily Washington, maybe MI6 in London, is certainly not the creature of people sitting in Kiev or Kiev. I don't think that's the case at all. But they are clearly responding to this. We're working hand in glove with them. How much of it is us? How much of it is them? I think it's mostly us. And I think we have someone in the form of Mr. Zelensky who really satisfies our requirement to bleed the Russians. Unfortunately, he's bleeding Ukraine and Ukrainians.
Thanks for watching that episode of The Dive. If you'd like to support independent journalism, be sure to subscribe and consider becoming a member on my Patreon using the link below.